If you live in the DC area, you've likely heard of this next company I'm partnering with. Mighty Meals is a convenient, healthy meal delivery service made with locally sourced ingredients by chefs. I love Mighty Meals because with over 150 options that are constantly rotated for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, I am never bored. What's even better than the options is that the food is, well, I said earlier, delivered. No lugging groceries. For listeners of the Your Good News podcast, Mighty Meals is offering you $25 off for purchases of $75 or more. Head to eatmightymeals.com/yourgoodnews to check out the deal. And if you've missed that link, I've included it in the show notes. Hi, and welcome to the Your Good News podcast with me, your host, Katherine Getty. Each Thursday, I'll give you the scoop on the good news coming out of Washington and how you can get involved with this thing called democracy. Hello, and as you can tell, I am having that summertime cold. So you're going to be treated to a flashback episode this week. And hopefully next week, I will be back with another episode of the Your Good News podcast that is fresh. From here, take it away. Welcome back to another episode of the Your Good News podcast. Today is episode 90, which I wanted to take a personal note and just reintroduce myself. You may be a new listener, you may be an avid listener, but I wanted to share a little bit behind the why. Why do I make this podcast week in and week out? I think it all goes back to, for most of us, our childhood. So my parents were on opposite sides of the aisle. I think I've talked about this in previous episodes, but my mom was the leader of her teachers union in her school district, and my dad was a Republican on the other side of the aisle. I grew up in a family where disagreeing didn't mean we had to be disagreeable. It meant that we had to find common ground. I was a kid of the 90s. I was born in 1990. And I watched West Wing. I begged to watch West Wing as a child because I believed public policy could impact people's lives. I believed that government could create solutions in tandem with nonprofits and industry and just good people to make this country, to make this world a better place. So, with all that being said, I got involved in student government from a very, very young age. I remember that Getty is Ready was my high school student government treasurer, and I am not good with facts and figures, but I ran to be treasurer because I wanted to get involved in some way. It also was a way that I was able to make the high school announcements, which I thought was hilarious. Anyways, I wanted to give back to my community, and I realized that at a very young age. And I went to college at the University of Florida, got involved with student government, and I was absolutely hooked. I was hooked on the idea that you could actually impact how student fees were used, or you could impact how administration viewed insert issue. One of the big issues I remember in college was concealed carry during classes. And that was a really big issue. And it was something that we worked really hard to ensure that there were no guns on campus. And then fast forward, I left college and I worked for a nonprofit for a year, but I always knew I wanted to go to DC. And I just felt this nagging, this gut that going to DC would mean that I was going to actually be able to change something. I went to DC, and as I got settled, I started falling in love with politics even more. And let's just acknowledge the elephant in or the donkey in the room. Politics can be a full body sport. It can take control of everything and it can be really vicious, but I can also see, and I have seen over the years, I've lived in DC now 10 years, how beautiful it can be when you come together on a common issue, how you can find those issues, you can find the small issues and build on it. And I just kind of kept falling in love a little bit more with public policy. As 2020 kind of came into view, I was settled at a company working on government affairs. I had done some campaigns. I had done kind of that full body sport, and I'd gone to a company and felt like, okay, I'm going to create some good public policy. And then the pandemic happened. And I think all of us had to stop and think, what are we doing in this world? What are we giving back to this world? And for me, I really sat and I thought, I want to highlight the good news. I want to highlight those people that are doing good day in and day out, and they're making their little corner of the world a little bit better. For the first year of this podcast, I highlighted anyone from a teacher to a Capitol police officer to my nephew talking about sharks. And then I came to the end of the first year. It was an election year. And I felt this call to share more about the knowledge I had learned living in DC and loving the city and understanding the people that were making these big policy decisions and saying, you know what? I wanted to share their good news. I wanted to share the good news of what is this public policy issue, or what is the debt ceiling, or how is the government funded, or man, how do I register to vote, or does it really even matter if I call my member of Congress? And I was like called to that idea. And so for the last year or nearly a year, I've been able to share different pieces of knowledge about what happens in Washington, the good that is coming out of Washington, and how you can take it and incorporate it into your daily life. I want to give you the tools to be involved in this thing called our constitutional republic, the United States of America. I wanted to give you the tools to say, I can make this little corner of my world a little bit better through public policy. I know that this schoolhouse rock, this new schoolhouse rock that I've tried to create, isn't going to solve the world's problem. But I do know that people like you, people that want to find the good in this world, are those change makers. I believe strongly that any change in this country comes from its people. Doesn't come from on high in this public policy and made in Washington. It comes from the people voting for change. It comes from the people sharing their voice. And so, why do this on episode 90? 90 for me just felt like a really big number. It felt like I've been putting out issues that are important to me, but I wanted to share a little bit of the why I do this weekend and wake out, why I hope that this brightens your day, gives you some hope, gives you the tools to engage. I thank you so much for tuning in week in and week out. If you haven't, subscribe so that each Thursday I'll be in your inbox. I'll be in that wherever you listen to podcasts. And I hope that you may share it with someone you know, share it with someone you don't know. I thank you for listening because I know there are so many things that you could choose to listen to. And I think Lady Bird is making an appearance on this episode. Tune in next week to another episode of the Your Good News podcast.